Have you ever wondered what the exact same sunset feels like in New York, Cairo, Jakarta, and Lagos, when millions of people, at the very same moment, are waiting for a single call to prayer to break their fast? The sun is dropping behind the skyline of Brooklyn. Traffic hums in the distance. In a small apartment kitchen, a mother tastes a spoonful of lentil soup, adjusts the salt, and glances at the clock again. Across the ocean in Morocco, lanterns flicker on in narrow alleyways as trays of dates and chebakia are arranged carefully on low tables. In Turkey, long communal tables stretch across city squares, plates lined up in perfect rows. And in Indonesia, the streets are alive with vendors selling sweet kolak and fried snacks as families rush home before Maghrib. Ramadan is not just a month, it is a rhythm, a pulse that moves across the globe following the sun. In the United States, Ramadan feels like a quiet secret hidden inside a loud world. Muslims go to work, attend school, sit in meetings, answer emails, all while fasting from dawn to sunset. Their colleagues sip coffee, their classmates snack between classes, but inside there's a different awareness. Hunger becomes a reminder, thirst becomes a teacher, time slows down. And then comes Iftar. In Dearborn, Michigan, home to one of the largest Muslim communities in America, restaurants prepare for the rush hours before sunset. Steam rises from giant pots of rice. Fresh bread is stacked high. Families arrive early, greeting each other with warm smiles and the familiar words, Ramadan Mubarak. There is a feeling in the air that is hard to describe. Anticipation, gratitude, togetherness. The adhan echoes through a nearby mosque loudspeaker, soft but powerful. Conversations pause, hands reach for dates. Someone whispers a quiet prayer. The first sip of water feels like mercy itself. Thousands of miles away in Cairo, the scene is louder, brighter. Entire streets transform into open-air dining halls. Long tables, known as Maidat al-Rahman, are set up for anyone to join. Rich or poor, local or traveler, it doesn't matter. Plates of rice, meat, vegetables, and fresh bread are passed down the line. Strangers sit shoulder to shoulder, united by hunger and gratitude. When the cannon fires to signal sunset, a wave of relief and joy sweeps across the crowd. Ramadan in Egypt feels like a festival of light. Colorful fanus lanterns hang from balconies. Children run through the streets holding small lamps, their laughter echoing long after iftar ends. But even in the celebration, there is devotion. After the meal, people head to the mosque for Tarawih prayers. The night belongs to worship. In Indonesia, the world's largest Muslim majority country, Ramadan carries its own unique melody. The call to prayer blends with the sounds of motorbikes and street vendors. Before iftar, families gather around simple but meaningful dishes: sweet tea, fried tofu, rice porridge. There is something deeply beautiful about the simplicity. It's not about extravagance, it's about intention. In many Indonesian neighborhoods, children walk through the streets before dawn during Ramadan, gently waking people for sahur with drums and chants. It's a tradition that connects generations. Grandparents smile at memories of doing the same decades ago. Meanwhile, in Istanbul, Turkey, Ramadan feels almost cinematic. As the sun sets over the Bosphorus, silhouettes of minarets stand against a golden sky. Families spread picnic blankets in public parks. The smell of grilled meat and fresh-pied bread fills the air. There is laughter, but also reflection. The first bite is often a date, just as the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, is reported to have done. Then soup. Then the rest of the meal unfolds slowly. What makes iftar so powerful is not just the food. It is the shared pause, a collective exhale after a long day of restraint. In Nigeria, Ramadan carries a vibrant energy. Markets are packed in the late afternoon as people buy fresh ingredients, spices, rice, beans, fruits. In cities like Kano and Lagos, mosques overflow during Tarawih. Iftar tables often include local dishes like jollof rice and fried plantains. The flavors are bold. The hospitality is even bolder. In some communities, neighbors send plates of food to one another before iftar. A dish prepared in one home appears on another family's table. It becomes a web of generosity, connecting houses street by street. And then there is Ramadan in places where Muslims are minorities, like small towns in America, Canada, or Europe. Here, iftar can feel both intimate and quietly powerful. A handful of families gather in a local mosque basement. Children set up folding tables. Someone brings homemade samosas. Another brings brownies. There may not be lanterns hanging from every street, but there is sincerity in every gesture. If you're enjoying traveling through these Ramadan moments with me, take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next part of this journey. The rest of this series is waiting for you in the playlist, and it only gets more powerful from here. Back in the United States, something beautiful has been happening over the past few years. Open mosque iftars, interfaith dinners, community centers inviting neighbors of all backgrounds to experience the breaking of the fast. Long tables are set up, not just for Muslims, but for anyone curious enough to come. A non-Muslim neighbor tastes a date for the first time. Someone asks what fasting feels like. A quiet conversation begins. In that moment, iftar becomes more than a meal, it becomes a bridge. In Morocco, the iftar table often begins with harira, a rich tomato-based soup filled with lentils and chickpeas. Dates are carefully arranged. Sweet pastries glisten with honey. Families sit close together, sometimes 3 generations around the same table. The television may play a Ramadan special in the background, but when the call to prayer begins, everything stops. Silence, prayer, gratitude. In Pakistan, iftar can feel like a street celebration. Vendors sell fruit chaat in colorful bowls. Samosas crackle in hot oil. Ruh Afza, that bright pink syrupy drink, is poured into glasses filled with ice. Mosques distribute free iftar meals to passers-by. Even those who cannot afford much find ways to share something small. There is a universal understanding during Ramadan. No one should break their fast alone if it can be helped. In Bosnia, the sound of the adhan echoing through old Ottoman-era streets carries centuries of history. Families gather in homes that have seen generations of Ramadan come and go. Traditional dishes are prepared with care. The memory of past hardships, war, displacement, adds a layer of depth to the gratitude felt at iftar. And in the United Kingdom, particularly in cities like London and Birmingham, Ramadan has grown increasingly visible. Public iftar events are held in iconic spaces. Thousands gather in open squares. The diversity within the Muslim community becomes clear. South Asian, Arab, African, convert, refugee, all breaking their fast together. The sun sets at different times in different parts of the world. In some places, fasting lasts 12 hours. In others, especially in northern regions, it can stretch beyond 18. Yet no matter the length of the day, the moment of iftar feels equally sacred. There is something profoundly human about waiting together. Hunger equalizes people. It strips away distraction. It reminds us of vulnerability. And when that hunger is broken collectively, it creates a bond that transcends language and culture. In small villages in Senegal, iftar may consist of simple millet porridge and fresh bread. In wealthy Gulf cities, it may include elaborate buffets in hotel ballrooms, but the core remains the same: a date, water, a whispered prayer of thanks. As the night deepens after iftar, the world does not simply return to normal. Ramadan nights are alive. In many countries, markets stay open late, mosques glow with light. Children, allowed to stay up longer than usual, run through courtyards. The atmosphere feels almost suspended in time. In Kuala Lumpur, skyscrapers tower over bustling Ramadan bazaars. The scent of grilled satay drifts through humid air. Families shop for food after prayers, turning the night into a celebration of faith and flavor. In Los Angeles, Muslims navigate traffic to reach community iftars at local mosques. Some arrive straight from work, still in business attire. Others bring their children in pajamas, ready to head home after Taraweeh. It is a balancing act, modern life and ancient tradition woven together. Across continents, one pattern repeats itself: preparation, anticipation, gratitude. Preparation in the kitchen, anticipation as the sun dips below the horizon, gratitude with the first bite. And perhaps that is the heart of iftar around the world. It is not about identical meals or identical customs. It is about shared intention. Tomorrow the sun will rise again. The fast will begin again. Different cities, different languages, different flavors, but the same quiet promise carried in every heart: to be patient, to be grateful, to be better than yesterday. And when the sun sets once more, millions of hands will reach for dates in unison. Different tables, same moment, same mercy. In some places, the day of fasting stretches endlessly, especially when Ramadan falls in the summer. In cities like Chicago or Toronto, the sun lingers late into the evening, and the hours without food and water feel heavier. People glance at their phones more often, checking prayer time apps, calculating how much longer remains. Yet somehow, those final minutes before sunset always feel the longest and the most meaningful. In a small apartment in Queens, New York, a college student finishes her last online assignment before Iftar. She hasn't eaten since before dawn. Her head feels light, her throat dry, but her heart feels steady. In the kitchen, her mother is preparing pakoras, the oil sizzling gently. The smell fills the home, warm and comforting. Outside, the city moves at full speed, unaware that inside this apartment, time is slowing down. When the adhan plays from a phone speaker, they sit together on the floor. Dates are passed around, a quiet bismillah, and then that first sip of water, cool, life-giving, almost overwhelming. It's not just hydration, it's relief, it's mercy. Across the Atlantic in Morocco, the atmosphere before Iftar is electric. Streets that were calm during the afternoon suddenly buzz with movement. Bakeries are packed. Vendors shout final prices. Motorbikes weave through traffic as everyone rushes home before sunset. There's a shared urgency. No one wants to miss that first moment with family. Inside homes, tables are set with precision. Bowls of harira steam gently. Fresh bread is stacked in woven baskets. Dates are arranged neatly on small plates. Sweet pastries glisten under the kitchen light. When the call to prayer echoes through the neighborhood, it feels as though the entire city pauses at once. In Turkey, Ramadan evenings carry a softness that settles over the Bosphorus. Families gather in parks hours before Iftar, spreading blankets on the grass. Children run in circles, chasing each other between picnic setups. Vendors sell balloons and roasted corn. It feels festive, but when the cannon signals sunset, a hush falls over the crowd. Thousands break their fast at the same time, surrounded by strangers who somehow feel like family. In Indonesia, the final hour before Iftar has its own name, Ngabuburit. It's a time when people stroll through markets, visit friends, or simply pass time together before sunset. Street stalls glow under strings of lights. Vendors serve sweet drinks in clear plastic cups filled with ice and syrup. The atmosphere is alive but gentle, like the calm before a joyful release. Meanwhile, in West Africa, particularly in Senegal and Nigeria, Ramadan evenings are rich with community spirit. In Dhaka, women gather in courtyards to prepare large communal meals. Rice simmers in wide pots. Fish and vegetables are seasoned carefully. Children carry trays between homes, delivering portions to neighbors. Even those with little give something. Generosity becomes instinctive. If you're feeling the warmth of these Ramadan evenings across the world, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. There's something powerful about sharing these stories together, and the next part of this journey is waiting for you in the playlist. In the United Kingdom, especially in cities like London, Ramadan has grown increasingly visible. Massive open iftar events take place in public squares. Thousands gather as the sky turns pink and gold. People from different backgrounds sit side by side on long sheets spread across the ground. Some are lifelong Muslims, others are curious visitors, all are welcome. The beauty of iftar in minority communities is its quiet resilience. In small towns across America, Muslims may only number in the dozens. Yet every Ramadan, they transform modest mosque basements into vibrant gathering spaces. Folding tables are covered with plastic cloths. Dishes from different cultures line the buffet, biryani next to hummus, samosas beside macaroni salad. Children dart between tables, laughing. Elders exchange stories of past Ramadans, of fasting in different countries under different skis. For immigrants, iftar often carries nostalgia. A Syrian father in Texas remembers breaking his fast in Damascus years ago. An Egyptian mother in California recalls the cannon firing at sunset in Cairo. They recreate flavors from home, bridging continents with spices. In Bosnia, Ramadan evenings feel deeply reflective. The call to prayer echoes through valleys where centuries-old mosques still stand. Families gather in homes marked by history. Traditional dishes are prepared carefully, passed down through generations. There's pride in preserving these customs. There's also gratitude for peace and stability after times of hardship. In Malaysia, Ramadan bazaars transform city streets into rivers of color and aroma. Skewers of satay grill over open flames. Coconut-based desserts are displayed in neat rows. Vendors smile as customers choose their iftar treats. After sunset, families gather not only to eat, but to talk, to reconnect after long days apart. What's striking about iftar around the world is how the atmosphere shifts at sunset. Before Maghrib, hunger can make the air feel tense. After the first bite, everything softens, conversations grow warmer, laughter returns, faces relax. In Dubai and other Gulf cities, iftar tents are set up in hotels and open spaces. Ornate lanterns cast patterned shadows on carpets. Buffets stretch across long tables, filled with dishes from across the region. Yet even amid luxury, the tradition remains rooted in simplicity. Begin with dates and water. In rural villages in India, iftar might be modest: a few dates, some fruit, a glass of water, perhaps a plate of rice. Families sit on the floor together. There may be no elaborate spread, but there is sincerity. Often, the simplest iftars carry the deepest peace. In South Africa, Cape Town's Muslim community gathers in colorful neighborhoods where the adhan rises over the ocean breeze. Local dishes blend Malay, African, and Middle Eastern influences. The fusion reflects centuries of history. Ramadan becomes a living story of migration and resilience. Even in places where Muslims face hardship, conflict zones, refugee camps, iftar remains sacred. Aid organizations distribute meals at sunset. Families gather in temporary shelters. The food may be simple, sometimes scarce, but the intention is unwavering. Fasting becomes an act of spiritual strength. Breaking the fast becomes an act of hope. In Canada, where Ramadan can fall during long summer days, Muslims sometimes break their fast close to 10 p.m. or later. Children fight sleep to stay awake for iftar. Parents gently encourage them to take a small bite, a sip of water, to feel included. There's something tender about watching a child experience their first full fast. Across Latin America, growing Muslim communities in countries like Brazil and Argentina gather in mosques that may be small but full of life. Arabic, Spanish, Portuguese, all spoken around the same table. Ramadan bridges languages effortlessly. Back in the United States, social media lights up every evening with images of iftar plates. Friends send each other pictures of their meals. Mosques live stream community iftars. There's a digital togetherness layered over the physical gatherings. And then there are the converts, those who embraced Islam later in life. For some, Ramadan is their first experience of communal fasting. In a Chicago mosque, a recent convert sits quietly at an iftar table, unsure of what to expect. A stranger offers him a date with a warm smile. Someone else explains the dua before breaking the fast. Within minutes, he feels less alone. That's the magic of iftar. It dissolves barriers quickly. In many cultures, after the main meal, dessert follows. Sweet tea, baklava, kunafa, rice pudding. Conversations stretch late into the night. But even as laughter fills the room, there's an awareness that the night holds more than food. It holds prayer, reflection, forgiveness. In Mecca and Medina, millions gather during Ramadan. Iftar in the courtyards of the Grand Mosque feels almost surreal. Dates are distributed in neat rows. Water bottles are placed side by side. As the adhan calls, waves of worshippers break their fast simultaneously, the scale breathtaking yet intimate. No matter where you are, under skyscrapers, beside deserts, near oceans, in quiet suburbs, the essence of iftar remains consistent. A pause, a prayer, a shared moment. Ramadan reminds the world that discipline can coexist with joy, that hunger can deepen gratitude, that community can flourish even in difference. And as the night unfolds in city after city, mosque after mosque, home after home, the same pattern repeats. Plates are cleared, prayers are offered, hearts feel lighter. Then slowly, gently, preparations begin again. For tomorrow, for another day of fasting, for another sunset that will unite the world once more. There is a moment, just a few minutes before sunset, when the world feels suspended. In that final stretch of the fast, hunger sharpens the senses. The ticking of a clock grows louder. The smell of food feels stronger. Even the light outside the window seems different, softer, more golden, as if the day itself understands what is about to happen. In Houston, Texas, a father sits at the dining table with his 2 young sons. They've tried fasting for half the day, eager to imitate him. Their small plates are set neatly, a single date, a cup of water, a slice of watermelon. They keep asking, "Is it time yet?" He smiles, checking the prayer app again. Almost. Across the ocean in Jordan, a grandmother stands over a large pot of makluba, carefully flipping it onto a wide serving tray just before iftar. The rice and vegetables settle into a perfect dome. Her grandchildren watch with wide eyes. They've seen her do this every Ramadan, but it never loses its magic. In Pakistan, the last hour before iftar transforms neighborhoods into a rush of color and motion. Vendors shout out final orders for fruit chaat. Samosas are wrapped in newspaper and handed through open car windows. Motorcycles zip past, balancing trays of drinks. There's urgency, but it's joyful urgency. Everyone is racing the sun. Then, almost without warning, the adhan begins. And in living rooms, in restaurants, in courtyards, in public parks, silence spreads like a gentle wave. In Kuala Lumpur, a young professional sits in her office, headphones in, listening to the call to prayer through an app. She opens her desk drawer, pulls out a small container with dates, and whispers a quiet prayer before taking the first bite. Around her, co-workers continue typing, but for her, time has paused. In Istanbul, thousands gathered in a park lower their hands from prayer and lift cups of water together. In Cairo, entire streets erupt in collective relief as the first cannon sounds. In Chicago, a mosque loudspeaker announces Maghrib, and the parking lot fills with families heading inside. The first bite is rarely rushed. There's a softness to it, a stillness. Even in the busiest places, iftar begins gently. In Somalia, families sit on woven mats, sharing simple plates of rice and meat. Electricity may flicker. The world outside may feel uncertain, but in that moment, there is calm, there is gratitude. In Indonesia, the sweetness of kolak, bananas cooked in coconut milk and palm sugar, signals comfort. Children dip spoons eagerly into warm bowls. Parents smile, watching them. The day's fatigue begins to dissolve. If you've been traveling across these iftar tables with me, take a second to like this video and subscribe. These stories connect us in ways we don't always realize, and the final part of this journey is waiting for you in the playlist. In Germany, Muslim communities, many of Turkish and Arab descent, gather in mosques that stand quietly among city blocks. After long workdays, people arrive still wearing office clothes, construction uniforms, medical scrubs. Shoes line the entrance. Inside, volunteers move quickly, placing dates and water bottles in front of each person. The diversity within the Muslim world becomes especially visible during iftar. In one row, a Syrian refugee sits beside a Bosnian engineer. Across from them, a Nigerian student chats with a German convert. They may speak different first languages, but they share the same prayer at sunset. In France, Ramadan nights carry both visibility and intimacy. In Paris, small bakeries prepare special Ramadan pastries. Families gather in compact apartments, laughter echoing through narrow stairwells. In suburban neighborhoods, mosques open their doors wide, welcoming both regular attendees and newcomers. In Bangladesh, the iftar table often bursts with variety. Fried eggplant slices, chickpeas, puffed rice mixtures, sweet jalebi coiled like golden spirals. The air hums with anticipation long before the adhan. Children peek at the clock every few minutes, counting down. And then there are the quiet iftars. The student studying abroad in a dorm room. The truck driver parked at a rest stop. The nurse on a late shift, breaking her fast alone in a hospital break room with a single date and a bottle of water. Ramadan is communal, but it is also deeply personal. In Alaska and parts of northern Europe, Fasting hours can be unusually long depending on the time of year. Some communities follow the timetable of Mecca to ease the difficulty. In these regions, the discipline of fasting feels especially intense, yet the joy at Iftar feels magnified. In South Africa, the Bo-Kaap neighborhood in Cape Town glows during Ramadan. Brightly colored houses line the streets. The smell of spiced samosas drifts through the air. Mosques fill with worshippers. When the adhan rises, it carries over hills and ocean breeze alike. In the United Arab Emirates, Iftar tents often combine tradition with modern elegance. Families and friends sit cross-legged on carpets beneath chandeliers of patterned light. Dishes arrive in steady rhythm: soup, salad, rice, grilled meats, desserts. Yet no matter how abundant the table, the first act remains the same: date, water, prayer. In Kosovo and Albania, Ramadan evenings carry echoes of Ottoman history. Stone mosques stand quietly as the sun dips behind mountains. Families gather in modest homes, preserving recipes handed down for generations. There's pride in continuity, in keeping traditions alive despite shifting times. Back in America, Ramadan has found its own rhythm. In suburban neighborhoods, neighbors sometimes notice increased evening activity. Cars fill mosque parking lots after dark. Lights remain on later than usual. Within homes, the dining table becomes the center of attention. For many Muslim families in the US, Iftar is also a teaching moment. Parents explain the meaning of fasting to their children. They talk about empathy for the less fortunate. They encourage gratitude for blessings often taken for granted. In Detroit, community centers host youth iftars. Teenagers gather, balancing faith and modern life. They take selfies, laugh, then fall quiet when the adhan begins. It's a powerful blend of worlds, tradition meeting generations. In Morocco, after Iftar, people often step outside for a short walk before heading to Taraweeh prayers. The air feels lighter, neighbors greet one another warmly. Ramadan nights feel different, almost sacred in their atmosphere. In India's old cities, like Hyderabad and Lucknow, markets remain open late into the night. Ramadan becomes a nocturnal celebration. Families shop for sweets after prayers. Street food stalls glow under hanging lights. In Canada, particularly in cities like Toronto and Montreal, multicultural iftars showcase incredible diversity. One table might hold Somali sambusas, Pakistani biryani, Syrian kibbeh, and Malaysian desserts, all contributed by different families. That diversity is a reminder. Islam is not confined to one culture. Ramadan does not look the same everywhere, and yet, at sunset, it feels the same everywhere. The hunger fades, the gratitude remains. In refugee camps in parts of the Middle East and Africa, humanitarian organizations distribute simple iftar meals: rice, lentils, bread. Families gather on thin mats. Even amid displacement and uncertainty, Ramadan brings structure and hope. It marks time in a meaningful way. In Spain, in cities like Granada, Ramadan revives memories of Al-Andalus. Small Muslim communities gather in historic quarters, breaking their fast under ancient walls that have witnessed centuries of change. In Brazil, mosques in São Paulo host iftars that blend Arab and Brazilian flavors. Portuguese mingles with Arabic. Children run between tables as elders exchange stories of migration. Everywhere you look, iftar carries layers of identity: faith, culture, memory, community. But beneath all of that, there is something simpler. A human being abstains from food and water for the sake of something greater. And at sunset, that human being pauses, whispers gratitude, and takes a bite. Multiply that by millions, and you begin to understand the quiet power of Ramadan. As the third week of Ramadan approaches, many communities intensify their devotion. Mosques grow more crowded. The final 10 nights carry special significance. Iftar becomes not just nourishment, but preparation for deeper worship, for reflection, for seeking forgiveness. The nights grow longer, the prayers stretch deeper into the early hours, yet even in fatigue, there is fulfillment. Because Ramadan is not just about surviving hunger. It is about transforming through it. And as the sun continues its journey across continents, tomorrow will bring another day of fasting, another moment of anticipation, another global pause at sunset. Different time zones, different tables. Same devotion, same gratitude, same shared breath at Maghrib. The call to Maghrib in Sarajevo doesn't rush you. It lingers in the cold evening air, brushing against the stone bridges and the old Ottoman rooftops, echoing down narrow streets that have seen centuries of empires rise and fall. The sky turns a deep blue and lanterns flicker to life along Bashchashija. Families step out of apartments with trays covered in embroidered cloth, balancing thermoses of soup and plates of soman bread. In a small kitchen overlooking the Miljacka River, a grandmother stands by the stove, ladling steaming bigova chorba into bowls. Her grandson watches the clock, counting down the last few minutes. He hasn't eaten all day and his lips are dry, but he smiles. Ramadan here is quiet but powerful. It carries memory. As the adhan fades, hands rise in prayer, dates touch lips, water cools throats. The first sip feels like rain after drought. Around the table, no one speaks for a moment. It's not silence, it's gratitude. Then conversation bursts open. Laughter, stories, the clink of spoons against ceramic. Bigova chorba is followed by stuffed peppers, grilled meats, and flaky burek filled with cheese and spinach. Outside, neighbors greet each other in the courtyard. Some will head to the mosque for tarawih. Others will stay home, sipping strong Bosnian coffee late into the night. Halfway across the world, in the crowded streets of Lagos, Nigeria, Ramadan feels different, but the heartbeat is the same. The heat of the day has been intense. Markets were alive since morning, selling rice, beans, spices, fried plantains. Women in bright hijabs carry trays of puff-puff and meat pies as the sun sinks behind the skyline. Children chase each other in dusty alleys, waiting for the signal to break their fast. In a modest home lit by a single bulb, a father leads his family in dua before they eat. The table is simple: jollof rice, pepper soup, sweet zobo drink. The food is vibrant, rich with flavor, but it's not about the variety, it's about the moment. He looks at his children and says softly, "Fasting teaches us who we are when no one is watching." They nod, not fully understanding yet, but feeling it. And that's what Ramadan does. It plants seeds. If this journey is opening your eyes to the beauty of our global ummah, take a moment right now to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It helps more people discover these powerful stories, and it keeps this series going for the rest of Ramadan. Because this story doesn't end here. In Kuala Lumpur, skyscrapers reflect the sunset in sheets of gold. The Petronas towers glow as thousands prepare for Iftar, but beneath the modern skyline, there's tradition. At Masjid Jamek, volunteers line long tables with plastic cups of water and plates of rice. Office workers, taxi drivers, tourists, students, everyone sits side by side on woven mats. There are no VIP sections, no reserved seats. A man in a business suit breaks his fast next to a construction worker still in dusty boots. They exchange smiles. When the azan echoes, it feels like the city exhales. In Istanbul, ferries glide across the Bosphorus as families gather along the waterfront. Some lay picnic blankets. Others sit at long communal tables set up by the municipality. The air smells of fresh pied bread, lentil soup, and grilled fish. As cannon fire signals the end of the fast, a centuries-old Ottoman tradition, the crowd erupts gently into motion. Hands reach for olives and cheese, for soup and tea. Seagulls circle overhead. An elderly man explains to his granddaughter how his own father used to wake him for sahur decades ago, tapping on the window with a spoon. She listens wide-eyed, her fingers sticky with syrup from a piece of baklava. Ramadan connects generations. And in Dearborn, Michigan, the largest mosque in North America fills to capacity. Parking lots overflow. Inside, rows stretch wall to wall. The imam's voice trembles slightly as he recites verses about mercy. After prayer, the community hall transforms into a feast. Yemeni mandi sits next to Iraqi dolma. Syrian desserts share space with American-style brownies. Conversations shift between Arabic and English. A teenage girl helps serve plates. She was born in the US, but Ramadan makes her feel deeply rooted. It's like, she tells her friend, we belong to something bigger. And she's right. In Jakarta, traffic slows as sunset approaches. Street vendors prepare kolak, sweet banana and coconut milk dessert, while mosques broadcast Quran recitation over loudspeakers. The sound overlaps across neighborhoods, a layered symphony of devotion. A mother wipes sweat from her forehead as she sets out fried tofu, rice and sambal. Her son just returned from the mosque, where he helped distribute food to the poor. He's tired but proud. Because Ramadan isn't just about breaking your own fast, it's about feeding someone else. In Cairo, the streets glow with fanus lanterns. Children wave them in the air, singing old Ramadan songs. Apartment balconies are strung with lights. Long tables stretch down entire streets in working-class neighborhoods, funded by local businesses and volunteers. Anyone can sit. No one asks who you are. A man who spent the day collecting trash eats beside a university professor. A taxi driver shares bread with a stranger. They trade stories between bites of kashari and roasted chicken. Above them, the minarets stand tall against the night sky. Ramadan flattens hierarchy. In London, the East London Mosque hosts open iftars for Muslims and non-Muslims alike. The smell of curry fills the air. Volunteers in reflective vests guide people inside. Some attendees are fasting, others are curious neighbors. A young woman who recently converted to Islam sits quietly, holding her first date of the evening. She feels nervous, but welcomed. When the call to prayer sounds, tears slip down her cheeks as she whispers her dua. Across the room, an elderly man from Bangladesh smiles knowingly. Ramadan makes strangers into family. And in a small village in Morocco's Atlas Mountains, the scene is simpler. There are no skyscrapers, no traffic. Just clay homes, olive trees, and a sky so full of stars it feels endless. A family sits on woven rugs. Their meal is humble: harira soup, fresh bread, dates, and mint tea poured from high above the glass to create foam. They eat slowly, savoring every bite. Afterward, they step outside. The night is quiet except for distant laughter and the soft murmur of prayer. The father looks up at the sky and says, "Every year, Ramadan reminds us we are guests on this earth." His words linger in the cool mountain air. Across continents, languages, and cultures, the details